Hello everyone, welcome to GoTarryn TV. This is Dr. T, PhD, the prodigy of sports psychology, and I'm out here en route to my next client, and this was the perfect opportunity for me to invite one of my very favorite guests right here on today's show. And before we have her on here, I'd like to ask everyone out there to please make sure to like this video, leave us a comment, and share it with all of your friends and family out there. I have asked Commissioner Alana Sanders to return here on GoTarryn TV. We haven't talked for a couple months, so it'd be a great opportunity for us to catch up, just see how things are going in her world, both in the political arena and also in her fitness realm, as she wears multiple hats, a couple of them being both, as I mentioned, the Commissioner of Newton County, Georgia, as well as the owner of Get Pulsed Fitness and many other things that she does. So we're going to talk some current events, some civic politics, and other fun things here on today's episode. So I always enjoy doing that with her because I learn a lot from her as she helps educate all of us on all things like politics and civic duties and everything else, and some fitness mixed in there as well. So there's no better person I could think of than to ask Commissioner Alana Sanders right here on GoTarryn TV. So I can't wait to catch up with her. We'll have her here momentarily. And remember, with GoTarryn Health and Fitness, it's your time, it's your investment, it's your life. We'll be right back.
At the University of Iowa. She's doing amazing. Yeah, doing amazing.
Yeah, that's great. How's she liking it out there?
She loves it. She actually loves it. I've been asking her, has she been keeping up with her sports team? You know, the girls just went to the Final Four with LSU, and I said, "Are you keeping up with it?" She's like, she didn't even know. She's like, "Mom, I have some friends that are going, but I'm not into the sports." She didn't even realize that the basketball team was. She knew they're good, but she didn't realize they were at the championship. I was like, okay.
That's so cool. Wow. Oh. Yeah. You haven't been able to watch a game, I guess, since going there, I'm assuming.
I have not. I might start watching. I have not.
Yeah.
But, University of Iowa was really known for sports, so
right.
I have not. Because when I tell guys about what school she go to, the first thing they say, "Oh, the Hawkeyes." I was like, "Oh, okay." It's like academics.
Yeah. Yeah, and plus also with their sports is the wrestling too. That's pretty big up there.
And see, I didn't even know that. You just told me something I didn't even know.
Yeah, wrestling's pretty big and popular at that school. But that's wonderful. I'm glad that she's getting acclimated there. And as far as she making friends and kind of connections and everything else.
Yeah, they have a huge program on how to connect with friends. And then they have a program where they can pick their own roommates. So, cool. They match them based on personality. And then
that's a good idea.
So I was like, I wish that happened when I was in school. I mean, I probably would have stayed on campus, but something completely different.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. Well, since last time you and I spoke, I know today we're going to kind of talk about current events, and that's your world is politics, being commissioner in Newton County. So, I mean, gosh, I don't know where to start, but it seems like the theme of everything in the last couple of weeks is the guns, isn't it?
Yeah, that's been a huge issue, especially what's happening in Tennessee. Did you hear about that? Yeah, so those state reps were fighting for their community that just had a huge shooting. And so to be removed, well, I think one of them was recently reinstated, but to be removed from office to fight for your constituents, that is the whole, I guess, opposite of what politics is supposed to be about. Because you're represented, you're voted in by a bunch of people, a group of people in your area who are putting you in place to represent them and protect them. But because you're speaking up and speaking out about your community, you could happen to lose your job.
That's amazing. Yeah, I never knew that could happen.
That was the first I've ever heard that even happening. And then I didn't know that the commissioners, which is kind of like myself in Tennessee, can reinstate them. So I'm like, wow, I'm learning the power of my position to be able to reinstate a state representative. That's interesting to me.
That is interesting. Yeah. I assume, Alana, in your role
in position, you haven't had any controversial things like that take place since being, in that. I'm guessing. I'm just assuming that.
More so, not on that area, because I do try to periodically go and see the state reps in action, and I do watch it on the live screen when they streams. They're out of session now. State reps are normally in session for 40 days, and so I try to make sure that I pay attention to what's going on down there. But in my position, local officials, I think we catch it a little bit more because we are in the area with the people that we represent. And so they would see us in a grocery store. They would see us at Walmart or Target. So they will stop, or at church, give you an example. We'll stop you at the church and say, well, have you heard about such and such and such and such? I was like, we just finished praising Jesus. Like, can I get a day? Can I get a day? But I mean, your job is never ending. And I understand that they put you in place to protect them and serve them. So I get it versus being a state rep. You possibly will not live in the area that you represent. You may be in the vicinity, but you
interesting
in the actual community versus a commissioner. All my neighbors that are in my subdivision are my constituents. So they were my neighbors before that's why I call my constituents my neighbors. You never hear me call them constituents, because my neighbor I knew for being in my home going on 16 years, almost 17 years. Was my neighbor first. So we have a relationship before I became a commissioner. So they can come up to me and say, Alana, what's going on? So that's the difference from being a state rep, that you don't have that one-on-one relationship. Possibly state reps, congressmen, senators, your U.S. senators, you have your state senators and U.S. senators, you possibly won't have that one-on-one relationship with all of your constituents. Maybe some, but not all of your constituents. So that's a complete difference.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Well, yeah, I guess, what was your thoughts on everything that happened, I guess, in that case and some of these other cases that we've seen? I'm sure you've been following it closely, like just kind of thoughts on where we're at as a, I guess, society or as a country. Why is this more prevalent? I mean, it seems like it's happening more regularly.
It's starting to become more prevalent. Why? Because of technology. It's always been that way. And so because technology is holding people accountable. It's showing society what really does happen behind the scenes. So now you can't hide your feelings. You can't hide your thoughts, your emotions behind the scenes, because people are going to have either a camera phone in your face or it's streaming. And thanks to the pandemic, everything is online now. Stuff was online, but now it's more so online. I still teach on a university setting, and I just came from teaching. I teach a marketing class twice a week, and it's at a university that has in-person capability, but they have not gone back in person. So I'm sitting here looking at students teaching an actual marketing class online. So everything now is online. So everybody's being held accountable, and my classes are now recorded. So back in the day, a teacher can probably say something in class, and then the student might, say something. You're like, yeah, you could dispute that. You can't dispute it anymore because it's recorded. So you are being held accountable for your actions, which it should be. We should be held accountable. If we are leaders and we are in these positions to lead, and we took a oath of office to serve, then we should be held accountable. We should be held accountable on all aspects. Now, there are some things to where you have constituents who may not like you. They didn't like you from the beginning, don't even know your name, don't even know anything about you. They just don't like you because maybe a party that you represent, or because you might be outspoken and you don't follow certain people's agenda. So they just don't like you for no reason. So they will say and try to do certain things and pin stuff on. It happens. It's politics. I had to learn it that way. But you have to have thick skin in this position. If you don't, I do not wish this on anybody who cannot handle it, because there's so much coming at you at once, to where I've even had colleagues in the state of Georgia who had to seek therapy to make sure that they're balanced, because you're taking on everybody's problems and not just only your own. You're trying to handle your personal life, but you're taking everybody's problems, issues. And when things don't go the way they should to serve our community and for safety, kind of like, i.e. Tennessee, what's going on, you're holding it in because you're trying to keep your community safe, but others out there are not seeing. They're more seeing it as a product versus safety. They're more seen as
Mm-hmm.
agenda or whomever they're trying to protect versus safety. So that can be a toll on you because you're like, why do they don't understand that we are here to protect our residents? We are here to protect the citizens of the United States, of the residents of our area. Why they don't understand that? So everybody doesn't is not in this political arena for a. They are here for a reason. Let me say that, but they're not all here for the right reason. So you do
Yeah.
have some great elected officials out there who are here for the right reason to serve their community and serve those in their areas to make sure that they're doing the right thing and following laws. And then you have some who are there for clout and who are there to serve themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, what politician, I don't call myself a politician, I say I'm a public servant. So what person are you? Are you a politician or are you a public servant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's one thing I think that the people in the, whatever local, state, country want to have belief and trust in their leaders. And so what we're seeing right now, I guess, no question that it could be definitely for some people just with everything, like using the guns, for example. I think people are wondering, do some of these leaders in those positions have the best interests of the people at heart, right?
And one of the bills that didn't pass on the last day, I believe, I'm not sure if it was
Hmm.
the House or the Senate in the state of Georgia, was in regards to
Hmm.
price gouging for rent. And that's been a huge issue
Oh,
nationwide
yes.
with people
Mm-hmm.
trying to survive. They've lived in a place for so long and all of a sudden their rent just doubled.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
died. And I'm not sure if
Oh.
it's the House or the Senate. So it also makes you wonder, like, which elected officials have ties to or have property or have rental properties and so forth to where it would affect them that they
Mm-hmm.
can't increase their prices. So you have to think about that when someone was trying to explain to me and they were upset, like, why would this die? I said, well, you have to sit back and do the research. Then you have to sit back and analyze which elected officials may be property owners. Which of
Mm-hmm.
them
Good
feel this
point.
is going to mess up their business? Which of them
Mm-hmm.
are thinking that if they do this, then they can affect them in the long run? They're not looking at, we have residents who are becoming homeless. We have teachers who are living in storage units, teachers with
Mm.
college education who cannot survive with the salary that they're making, that they are renting out the inside storage units that have the AC and the heat, and then they
Wow.
have gym memberships to where they go to the gym to wash up and do whatever they need and brush their teeth and then go straight to work and get dressed, go straight to work. But they're sleeping in storage units. These are people with college, these are college educated, essential workers that
Wow.
do not have the means to be able to survive because they're not getting paid enough, but they're educating us or they're educating your children and so forth. But they don't see that we are affecting those, or your firefighters or your police officers, those
Mm-hmm.
essential workers who need some relief and so forth. And they cannot afford to survive with these prices, but they don't think on that manner that even though you may be protecting the big wig,
Mm-hmm.
but what about the person who's been protecting you as far as law enforcement, fire? Something happened. This person got to come to your house and put out your fire. This person is teaching your child. This person is doing various things. You want to make sure that these individuals stay on the straight and narrow because they are our safety and EMS people. They are our teachers. And I consider teachers life support as well because a lot of these students go into the classroom with a lot of issues and the teachers become therapists. So you want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you are taking care of the people who are taking care of you and your family. So to have them not being able to survive in this economical state and have to go to means such as that, even being college educated, it really questions our system. It's a
Mm.
huge question on our system.
Yeah, certainly. I didn't even know about what you just said that there were actually people doing that. That's incredible. Gosh, and you're right. It does make me wonder. On both sides, Republican and are there some Democrats voting, in that
Exactly.
interest? You know what I mean? Yeah. So, wow. Let me ask you this, because you would know the answer. Is that public? Would they make that public knowledge of which individuals
Oh,
voted which way?
most definitely. That is public
Mm.
knowledge. And that's why I told someone, I said, research the ones that voted against it. Research it
Right.
because it's also public knowledge that we have to disclose what we're affiliated with. If we have businesses, if we have
Okay.
property that we own, all of that has to be disclosed as elected official. Our lives are on a piece of paper that we have to put on a piece of paper every year in July.
Mm.
I think it's twice
Mm.
a year. Is it twice a year? But I know we have to do it in July. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have to disclose information of who we work for, what businesses we own, if we own
Interesting.
property, all that is available. It's public record. So that's why I tell individuals research your elected officials and find out what they're doing, because that's going to be
Right.
the answer.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. The one I think about that I always hear about is whenever some of these leaders have knowledge of certain stocks that are about to, change drastically, and we've heard stories of that in recent years where all of a sudden they have some inside trading knowledge and they're
Yeah,
able to,
yeah.
you know, yeah. So it really makes me wonder, like, how's that even fair? And it's like you said, like, I don't know. I keep thinking, like, why do we keep electing some of these same people into power like that? Clearly, they're
One of the
abusing
things
it.
is people have to be consistent in their voting process. They have to be
Mm-hmm.
consistent to vote in every election. The issue is that people forget about all of the elections that not are not tied to the presidential election,
Uh-huh. Right.
presidential campaign. You have to
Yeah.
vote locally. You have to vote locally. I'm gonna say it one more time. You have to vote locally, because
Mm.
when you vote locally, that determines the officials that you're going to put in place where you live. And
Mm-hmm.
even in this last Georgia election, it was so disappointing, not by who won, by the amount of people who came out to vote.
Oh.
And it if you would have seen the numbers, that the numbers were decreased from the 2020 election. And 2020, we were all amped up. We were in the house. We were getting educated because we had nothing else to do. There was a
Huh.
lot of different matters happening, and lives
Huh.
matters that were occurring. So everybody was amped up. Then you had the George Floyd situation. So a lot of things happened during that time,
Uh-huh.
where people were like, I'm getting out to vote. And of course, the insurrection stuff occurred with
Mm.
our previous president. So many things happened during the pandemic that people wanted to get out to vote. There was a reason, but they have to keep that same energy every year.
Mm-hmm.
Even in there's an election that's going to be held somewhere every year, whether it's your local election, so your primaries, your general, and all those various things. There's going to be some type of election that's going to be held every year, but we have to do better as well to inform the people. But the people also have a civic duty, and your
Mm-hmm.
civic duty is to vote, and your civic duty is to hold your elected officials accountable, and your
Mm-hmm.
civic duty is to make sure that you stay in tune with your government. Because you can't complain if you have no idea what's happening surrounding you. All of a sudden, you see a whole bunch of houses coming in your neighborhood, and you're like, "How did that happen?" It was
Mm.
passed on the local level, and you didn't show up to the meeting to deny it. So what? Your elected officials probably thought you were okay with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you have to
Yeah.
pay attention to what's happening around you.
No, it's so true. Yeah, you're right. Wow. Well, there's been so much controversy, with very polarizing sides on things like guns. And do you ever see this coming together where they're going to come up with a mutually beneficial, bipartisan agreement on what to do with guns?
Well, local officials also have authority too. To give you an
Mm-hmm.
example, I sent in a resolution to my county,
Mm-hmm.
combining it with coming in partnership with other commissioners in other counties, where we
Mm-hmm.
did a resolution pertaining to the housing crisis and one that's pertaining to guns.
Mm-hmm.
A local level, they have the authority. If they're not doing it on the state level, guess what? You can do it in the counties. The
Huh.
counties can have certain laws that they could put in place on to make individuals have certain things in order to get a gun, because they got to get their
Yeah.
permits. Of course, now they kind of remove, you don't have to have a permit to get a gun now here in Georgia.
Oh,
So
wow. I didn't even know that.
I have one, but now you don't have to have a permit to get a gun in the state of Georgia.
Wow.
So
Unbelievable.
that, I mean, you have to be registered, but you don't have to have a permit to operate it. So they changed all of that. So that may once that happened,
Hmm.
that and I think that's I want to say that's happened in a lot of states. Once that occurred,
Uh-huh.
that's when you saw the gun violence just increase, because anybody can have access to a gun. I do believe that
Oh,
you could put various things in place like mental health. A person needs to be checked to see if they're mentally stable to be able to operate a gun, because
right.
you don't know their sole purpose of going to seek a gun. So those are the various things that can happen on a local level that you can ask your local officials, your county commissioners, to put gun policies in place, because that flows through your probate judge on in regards to the permits and stuff like that. So you can put different policies in place. Your local government has just as much power as the state. do those laws.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but you're right. And you brought up a good point, Elena, about the mental health and mental illness situation that we have. And right now, yeah, that does seem like it's kind of being swept under the rug or in between the cracks, so to speak, doesn't it?
Yes, behavioral health is a big initiative now in the United States.
Hmm.
It's been missed for so many years, and now we're trying to revamp to see how we can
Hmm.
take care of this crisis because the majority of your inmates, your offenders that are in jail, have mental illness, and
Hmm.
they should be in some type of facility that's assisting them, or I don't know, or if they have to be medicated and so forth, there should be something that's assisting them. So you have a lot of counties who are now joining on board to create mental and behavioral health programs. We have that currently in our county, but we can do more because
Hmm.
have some individual places that have behavioral health hospitals where they have outpatient and inpatient services to where if you feel like you're having an anxiety attack or episode, you can check yourself in for 24 hours to make sure you get the help that you needed. So some counties in the United States have that already in place for behavioral health, as well as championing your law enforcement and also having classes and sessions for them to be able to learn how to recognize those citizens, those residents with mental health issues. So when they actually come to potential arrest, they can recognize that person has mental illness and create a database of people in your county or in your city that has mental illness so that law enforcement know that when they tap in that information, okay, this person has a mental health issue. So we know how to handle them with care versus thinking that they are having an episode or resisting arrest. No, they have a
Uh,
mental illness and they don't know what you're doing to them. It's an unfamiliar situation, so they retaliate, and it's not in a negative way. Their mental state is not stable enough to recognize that you're an officer and you're there to protect them. So you
uh-huh.
have to do some type of training with your law enforcement so they can recognize those symptoms, those things that are happening with those residents who have mental illness.
Yeah, clearly, and we talk about the Nashville incident, but also recently was the other incident in Tennessee. I believe that was Memphis with
Mhm.
it was the police officers that got in trouble there. I haven't heard a follow up on that yet, but that's another issue when you talk about police brutality or abuse of power. But I just haven't seen if there's been any type of. I think those cops were
I
not
think they
only
were sentenced. Yeah,
they
the officers were sentenced.
were okay.
Hmm. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that did occur because
interesting.
I went that happened around the time that I had to go to DC and I was with some of the commissioners in that area, and they were
Hmm.
talking about it. So I do believe those officers were already sentenced, and
Well,
so
it goes back to what you were saying a few minutes ago about how you can't really hide things and everything's caught on audio or video. And,
correct.
when you have technology like that, it's really hard to deny the truth that way when it's bulletproof. So in that case, I guess that's where technology was a good thing, where, they were able to determine exactly what happened.
Technology is always a good thing. You have to realize that we are not above the law. That laws are put
Hmm.
in place for a
Hmm.
reason. They're put in place for a reason for any whatever reason it may be. They're put in place for a reason, and we're not above it. So we have to follow
Hmm.
laws, those laws that are put in place. So especially with those servants who are sworn in to protect and serve their
Hmm.
community, that they should definitely be held accountable if they are not doing what needs to be done to protect the community. And so we
Hmm.
have to be held accountable. Nobody is above the law. And so, as I stated, a lot of this has already been occurring for years. It's just that technology is holding people accountable, making people be more accountable for their actions because it is recorded. It is
Oh,
recorded.
yeah. Yeah, certainly, and that's great because I don't know when that was instituted with police officers having the body camera,
Body
but
camera.
I think that's such a great benefit to help not only anybody in that situation, but also help the cops too in case
Most
they want
definitely.
give their side of it, and yeah, I think that's a plus. But again, going back to what we were just talking about, the whole mental and behavioral health, crisis that we kind of have right now. I guess I'm just assuming that maybe more funding needs to go into instituting some programs and rehabilitation services like that.
Well, the government has put some funding behind it. Now it's
Oh,
up to
good.
us on the local level to make sure it's initiated. We did
Oh, good.
receive American Rescue Plan funds that can go towards mental health. And so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's up to the areas to make sure they implement those programs and those elected officials in those specific areas to make sure those programs are funded and that they are provided for the residents. So it's
Oh,
now up to your lawmakers to do what needs to be done because the federal government has provided funding in regards to behavioral health and assistance in regards to that. So now our elected officials have to take it seriously that it is an issue. I believe as elected officials, we have a responsibility. We have to think outside ourselves because it's not happening in our community does not mean it's not happening. Sometimes people think out of sight, out of mind, and we can't be like that when we're put in a position and we took a sworn oath to serve our community. It cannot be out of sight, out of mind, and although it may not be happening in your community, we have to figure out a plan on how to service everyone. And so I have two neighbors who have mental illness. They bother no
mm,
one. They walk up and down the street consistently.
uh,
They have a pattern. And you know, those who may have mental illness or they have patterns. And if their patterns are off, then it could be an episode. So everybody knows them in the community. There was an issue
mm,
to where someone did call the police on one of them because they didn't know who they were and their pattern.
mm,
So the police did come out and did not know who they were either. So they just thought they were resisting, but that was not the issue. They were out of their element and did not know these individuals. So that's why it has to be important that we put programs in place and also programs in place to make sure that we are educating our law enforcement on various illnesses, even those that have drug addiction, which is a part of behavioral health. I just came from Toledo, Ohio, which is Lucas County, and as well as I went to Pima, Arizona, Pima
mm,
County, which is Tucson, Arizona, and I had to study the behavior health programs that they had and also the injustice and inequities in regards to the criminal justice system. So I'm a part
mm.
of a program with the National Association of Counties where I travel to counties to learn from those counties who got it right and decreasing incarceration rates. So there's so much more of data and stuff that we have to utilize to where people have to have those conversations. A lot of people don't want to talk about mental health. And I can speak on in the minority community, we were taught not to, well, not my family, but in the majority in the minority community, they were taught that therapy is not good. That if you have
Oh,
therapy, something's wrong with you. Not meaning something's wrong
uh,
with you. Therapy could put you on a balance. So in the minority community, they don't seek therapy as often as other communities would. Looking at the
uh,
data for injustice in the criminal justice system, we have to talk about that there are more minorities who are incarcerated than others. So it's okay to speak on that. We have to make it a comfortable setting to talk about it and to find solutions on why certain races get more time for the same crimes, why these various things happen. And until we have the conversation, these are big issues to where the National Association of Counties are sending myself and 25 other elected officials out to learn and figure out how we can do that, decrease the incarceration rate. We don't need to be
yeah.
building any more jails. We need to figure out why these people are going to jail and who's in the jail system. So we have to look at the data to see, okay, are they in the system because they have mental illness? Are they there for a petty crime, although it's a crime and you gave them 25 years for their first offense? That's why we have people overcrowded. So you have to look at those factors. You got to look at the data. What is the pattern of this certain area? So we shouldn't be building any more jails. We have enough. Figure out why these people are in jail. Are
Hmm.
they there justly and not falsely placed in jail? And were they there for a reason, or should they be seeking help in a behavior health hospital? So we have to look at all those various factors, and we have to be honest with ourselves and have the conversation. I tell people all the time. Some people get a little uncomfortable talking about race, but when you're in this
Mm,
position as an elected official, you have no choice but to talk about race because you have to. We have to make
hmm.
sure that we have laws put in place that are equal to everyone and we have equality. So we have to make sure in order to protect our residents, we have to look at the data. We have to discuss
Right.
data. And so in order to move forward to build a better community with everyone living in how they should be, we have to have the conversation.
Yeah, it's very well spoken. You're so right. And, I think that's absolutely true. If they want to get to the source of the problem and fix it, it just makes complete sense what you just said, Elena. And Well, that's again, I really appreciate, as always, being able to come out here and just so eloquently articulate everything going on in current events and keeping me up to speed. And before we close out, any final thoughts on what's going on out in Newton County, and I guess kind of in the spring season right now where we're in.
Right now, we're in our budget season. Of course, probably every county or every entity of government is doing budget. We're in budget season. So I
Okay.
do tell those who may not even live in my county, but live in somebody's county or somebody's state to make sure you stay connected to your elected officials, especially those who are in your area. You should know who you voted for. You need to watch what they're doing. You need to make sure that they're having meetings with you and the community to hear your voice to find out what it is that you want. It's not our job as elected officials to get up there and vote however what we want in our community. It's what you want, and we have a happy medium to make sure that we are doing something right and you're holding us accountable. So I do challenge all of those who are listening to the sound of my voice to get more involved in government. Know what's happening in your community. If it's not just the federal government, get involved in your local government, your city council, your commission, your county commission, as well as all the meetings are online. So now you have no excuse to say I can't make it to the meeting. You can tune in anytime to watch any meeting. And if you didn't catch it while it was live, you can go back and watch it on demand. So we
Oh
have
wow.
no excuse nowadays in this 2023 year and the whole pandemic not to go back and watch and pay attention to what's happening in your community, because then you're going to be shocked and say, "Hi, I was confused. I didn't know this was happening," because you was not paying attention. So my last words are pay attention.
Pay attention. That's a great mantra. Well, good, Elena. Well, before I let you go, we've got to go ahead and let's plug your contact information, how people can learn more about what you do in all the different realms that you, lead in, and not only civics, but also in fitness and everything else you do, please.
Yes, you can reach me if you're looking for the political arena. I'm at commissionersanders.com. And if it's in regards to fitness, it is getpulse.com, PULSED, which is plural.com.
Great, very good. Well, again, thank you so much, as always, Elena, for keeping us up to speed and helping educate us on these very important, topics. And we can't thank you enough. But I always enjoyed time with you. And let's do this again next month when you're available. And I wish you and your daughter the best as we spring forward into spring here.
Thank you so much. Talk later.
Thank you, Elena. Take care. And here comes your contact information one more time.